One of the smartest things you can ever do when dealing with toxic people is to recognize them early, before their behavior becomes background noise in your life. Because here's the truth: toxicity doesn't usually walk through the front door waving red flags. It shows up dressed as concern, as humor, as someone just being honest. But if you listen closely, you'll hear the manipulation underneath the charm, the control disguised as care, and the guilt wrapped in politeness. It's subtle at first. That friend who always finds a way to bring the conversation back to your flaws. That coworker who constantly oversteps, then says you're too sensitive when you call it out. That family member who keeps score of everything they've ever done for you and reminds you of it every time you draw a boundary. The signs are often small, dismissed as quirks or personality differences. But when these behaviors repeat, when they drain you emotionally, when they make you second guess your worth or reality, that's when you're no longer dealing with a one-off moment. That's a pattern, and patterns matter. The problem is, many of us are taught to be understanding at all costs, to be nice, to give people the benefit of the doubt, even when their actions are cutting us down. We say things like, "That's just how she is," or "He doesn't mean anything by it." We rationalize, we downplay, and slowly, without realizing it, we start to adapt to the dysfunction. We explain away disrespect until it becomes routine. We normalize the abnormal. But here's something worth thinking about: every time you normalize toxic behavior, you're training your nervous system to accept instability as standard. And the longer you stay in that environment, the more it distorts your sense of what's acceptable. It starts to feel familiar, and familiarity can be dangerous when it's tied to dysfunction. You stop seeing the damage clearly. You might even begin to feel responsible for it. Let me be clear, this is not about labeling every difficult person in your life as toxic. Life is full of friction. Conflict is part of being human. But there's a difference between a person who occasionally makes a mistake and someone who consistently makes you feel small, anxious, or depleted, and then refuses to take accountability for it. Toxicity is not about one moment, it's about impact and intent over time. It's about how someone's behavior affects your peace, your sense of self, and your emotional stability. The smartest move you can make is to stop making excuses for behavior that's slowly chipping away at your boundaries. You don't owe anyone a prolonged stay in your life simply because they've been around for a long time. History doesn't equal entitlement. Loyalty doesn't mean self-abandonment. When someone shows you they can't handle access to you with respect, your job isn't to keep educating them, it's to protect your space. Recognition is protection. When you see it for what it is, you can respond intentionally instead of reacting emotionally. You don't have to wait for things to get worse to justify leaving, distancing, or addressing the issue. You're allowed to trust your gut before the damage is permanent. That's not harsh, that's wisdom. And if you're still unsure, if you find yourself thinking, "Well, maybe I'm overreacting," here's a practical test. Ask yourself how you feel after spending time with this person. Do you feel energized or exhausted, empowered or diminished? If it's the latter, don't ignore it. Your emotional response is data. Start treating it that way. You can't control who walks into your life, but you can control how long they get to stay. And that starts with awareness. It starts with choosing not to look the other way, with trusting yourself when something feels off, even when there's no obvious proof yet. Because by the time you have the evidence, the damage may already be done. There's power in catching the small things early, in calling something by its right name, in refusing to let someone rewrite your reality just to make themselves comfortable. Once you've recognized toxic behavior, the next critical step is resisting the urge to respond emotionally. That's where most people get caught, not in the recognition, but in the reaction. Because toxic people aren't always trying to win the argument. Often, they're just trying to get a reaction. That reaction is the fuel. It's their leverage, their proof that they still have access to your inner world. And if they can pull you into emotional chaos, they don't need to be right. They just need to make you feel wrong. Think about that for a second. The goal of many toxic interactions isn't clarity. It's control. It's destabilization. They poke at insecurities, twist your words, and reframe reality in a way that puts you on the defensive. And the moment you react from that emotional place, whether it's anger, frustration, guilt, or even desperation, you've already stepped into their territory. You're no longer operating from your values, you're operating from your wounds. And that's a battle they know how to win. Responding, not reacting, is a mark of emotional intelligence. But more than that, it's a form of personal leadership. Because you're not just trying to protect your mood in the moment, you're protecting your long-term peace. You're choosing presence over impulse. You're choosing clarity over chaos. Now, this isn't about being passive. It's not about letting things slide or suppressing how you feel. It's about owning your response rather than giving it away. You can still be direct. You can still set boundaries. But you do it from a place of calm conviction, not emotional confusion. That's the difference. Philosophically, this touches on a very old idea, one that the Stoics knew well, that you are not what happens to you, you are how you choose to respond to what happens to you. Toxic people don't rob you of your peace. You hand it over when you let them dictate your emotional state. The power lies in the pause. That split second between stimulus and response, that's where your freedom is. And most people don't live there. Most people react out of habit, out of ego, out of fear. But when you practice emotional discipline, you become unshakable, not numb, not cold, just grounded. Here's what that looks like in real life. Someone sends you a passive, aggressive message. Instead of matching their tone, you step back. You look at what they said, not how they said it. You assess whether it even deserves a response. And if it does, you make it short, clear, and emotionally neutral. No defense, no drama, just facts. That's how you maintain control of the conversation and yourself. Or maybe someone tries to bait you into an argument. They say something intentionally provocative, something designed to hit a nerve. And it works. You feel your chest tighten, your jaw clench. In that moment, the smart move isn't to fire back. It's to step into awareness. What's actually happening here? What are they trying to get me to feel? And do I want to give them that power? Because when you react, you're responding to their story. But when you pause, you get to respond from your own. This isn't easy, especially when you're dealing with someone who knows how to push your buttons. But here's the truth. They only keep pushing buttons that still work. Every time you respond with composure, every time you disengage from the emotional bait, you deactivate those buttons. You change the dynamic. You teach them without saying a word that your peace is not theirs to play with. And the bonus, you gain clarity. Emotional reactions cloud judgment. They make it harder to see the situation and the person for what it really is. But when you stay calm, you see through the performance. You stop getting hooked by the drama. You start making decisions that serve you, not ones that simply relieve the momentary tension. So if you're serious about protecting your peace, the smartest thing you can do is stop letting toxic people script your reactions. Choose stillness. Choose presence. Let them throw the bait, and you simply don't bite. Once you've recognized toxic behavior and mastered the discipline of not reacting emotionally, the next move, the necessary move, is to set boundaries. And not just any boundaries, but boundaries that are clear, firm, and unapologetically enforced. Because recognition without action is just awareness, it's not protection. Let's be honest. Setting boundaries isn't complicated. What's complicated is everything that comes after. The guilt, the pushback, the discomfort of watching someone you care about bristle at the new rules you're putting in place. And that's exactly why most people avoid it. They fear that drawing the line might cost them the relationship. But here's the deeper truth. If a relationship can't survive your boundaries, it was never safe to begin with. People don't resist boundaries because they don't understand them. They resist them because they can't benefit from you in the same way once those boundaries exist. And toxic people, in particular, are often used to operating without resistance. So the moment you stop accommodating their dysfunction, the moment you stop giving unlimited access to your time, your energy, your emotional labor, they don't just get offended, they get strategic. They push harder, they make you feel selfish. They paint you as the problem. But let me be clear, boundaries are not selfish. They are the most honest expression of self-respect. They are not about controlling other people. They're about controlling what you will and will not accept. And they don't require explanation or permission. They require consistency. It's a psychological shift. It's moving from, I hope they treat me better, to, I will not stay where I am mistreated. That's where the power is, not in hoping people change, but in refusing to shrink yourself to avoid confrontation. Now, it's important to understand that boundaries are not ultimatums. They're not loud. They're not reactive. You don't set them in anger. You set them in clarity. You don't say, if you don't stop doing this, I'm leaving. You say, I'm not available for this kind of interaction. If it continues, I'll be stepping back, calm, clear, final. Because the real strength of a boundary isn't in how loud you declare it. It's in how quietly you enforce it. Think of boundaries like a fence around your property. You're not building walls to keep people out. You're building a gate to determine who has earned access and under what conditions. And if someone repeatedly tries to jump the fence, that's not love. That's entitlement. That's someone trying to gain access to you without regard for your well-being. And when that happens, your job isn't to negotiate with them. Your job is to lock the gate. Philosophically, this comes down to the idea of sovereignty, that you are the authority in your own life, that your time, your energy, your emotional bandwidth, they're all finite resources. And if you don't protect them, someone else will consume them for their benefit, not your growth. Setting boundaries is the way you honor that sovereignty. It's how you ensure that your peace is not constantly being traded for temporary comfort or false connection. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you've spent years over-explaining, over-accommodating, or over-extending yourself to avoid tension. But discomfort isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. In boundary work, it's often a sign you're doing something new. Growth always comes with resistance. The difference is, this time, the resistance is worth it. One of the biggest mistakes people make when setting boundaries is thinking they have to explain them, justify them, or make the other person feel okay about them. You don't. You can be kind, but firm. You can be compassionate, but clear. And you don't owe anyone a dissertation on your peace. A boundary isn't about punishing the other person. It's about preserving yourself. So if you're waiting for the right time to set that boundary, let me tell you, it was yesterday. The longer you delay, the deeper the patterns get. And the deeper they get, the harder they are to break. You don't need more permission. You need more courage. And courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just says, that's enough. Boundaries aren't the end of relationships. They're the beginning of honest ones. After recognizing toxicity, mastering your emotional responses, and setting firm boundaries, there's another crucial piece that often goes overlooked: limiting access. Because dealing with toxic people isn't just about managing individual interactions. It's about managing how much space they occupy in your life overall. Access is everything. Toxicity thrives not just in moments, but in ongoing presence. Think about it. You might be able to stay calm in one conversation or set a boundary in one interaction. But if that person is constantly in your life, showing up in your inbox, at your workplace, family gatherings, social circles, they have the opportunity to chip away at your peace over time. And peace, as fragile as it is, doesn't usually get shattered all at once. It erodes, slowly, incrementally, and before you realize it, the constant drain becomes your new baseline. This is why limiting access is often smarter than just limiting conflict. You can't control how people behave when they're near you, but you can control how often they get to be near you and how much you allow them to influence your environment. It's a simple truth, but it requires clarity. Toxic people don't just drain your energy, they drain your mental bandwidth, your focus, your ability to think clearly. The less access they have, the more space you reclaim for yourself. And with that space, you gain freedom. The freedom to choose what influences your mood, your decisions, your day. Limiting access can take many forms. Sometimes it's physical distance, seeing someone less frequently, not accepting every invitation, leaving the room when the conversation turns toxic. Sometimes it's digital distance, muting group chats, unfollowing on social media, or even blocking someone entirely. Sometimes it's emotional distance, sharing less, withholding your vulnerabilities, refusing to engage in emotional labor that's one-sided. This isn't about being rude or vindictive. It's about being wise and protective. It's about recognizing that not everyone deserves the full version of you. And that's okay. You don't owe your full presence to everyone who asks for it. Your energy is a currency. Spend it where it's valued and replenished. Philosophically, this aligns with a principle from boundary theory and social psychology. Your environment shapes you as much as you shape it. When you allow toxic influences constant access, they begin to affect your cognitive and emotional landscape. Over time, your worldview, your self-esteem, your stress levels, all can shift to accommodate the toxicity. The damage isn't always immediate or obvious. It's cumulative. Limiting access, then, is an act of preservation. It's choosing to curate your internal and external environment to support your well-being. You're not running from conflict. You're choosing what battles are worth fighting and what energies are worth expending. It's also a recognition of your limits. Every person has a finite amount of emotional and mental resources each day. If you spend those resources managing someone else's toxicity, you have less left to build your own life, to nurture your own growth, to engage in relationships that nourish you. That's why, paradoxically, less can be more. Less access for toxic people means more presence for yourself and those who uplift you. And let's be honest, this requires courage and self-respect. It often means disappointing people who expect constant access. It means saying no more than you want to. It means tolerating the discomfort of seeming distant or cold. But the alternative is worse. You become so entangled in their dysfunction that you lose sight of your own boundaries and your own value. In practice, this might look like turning off notifications from certain people. It might mean declining social engagements where you know the atmosphere will be draining. It might mean limiting phone calls or meetings to a set time and sticking to it. It might mean having a mental checklist for who you allow into your inner circle and protecting that circle fiercely. The key is intentionality. Don't let access happen by default or obligation. Choose it deliberately. And when that choice hurts someone's feelings, remember, your peace is not a negotiable favor. It is a necessity. This is also where technology can be a tool, not a trap. Use blocking, muting, and filtering to your advantage. Don't feel guilty about curating your digital space the same way you curate your physical space. The real world and the virtual world are part of your ecosystem, and protecting your ecosystem is critical. Limiting access isn't about severing all ties or abandoning responsibility. It's about protecting your energy and preserving your sanity. It's about understanding that sometimes the smartest thing you can do for yourself and others is to step back, give yourself room to breathe, and create distance from what doesn't serve you. When you limit access, you create space for healing and growth. You reclaim time and energy. You stop reacting and start choosing. And in that space, you find the freedom to rebuild your life around what truly matters. So as you move forward, remember this: it's not enough to simply manage toxic moments. You have to manage toxic presence. The smartest way to deal with toxic people isn't just about surviving their attacks. It's about curating your life so that they have less and less influence over your peace. Because your peace isn't just a feeling, it's your foundation. And you deserve a foundation strong enough to hold your best self without cracks caused by unnecessary exposure to toxicity. Certainly, here's a 700-word expansion of Key Point 50Z: focus on growth, not revenge, keeping the tone intellectual, clear, and accessible, and ensuring it flows seamlessly with the previous parts of the speech. When dealing with toxic people, it's tempting, sometimes deeply tempting, to want revenge, to prove them wrong, to show them that they can't break you, to get back at them for the pain, the frustration, the endless drain on your spirit. But here's the catch: revenge is a trap. It keeps you tied to the toxicity longer than necessary. It keeps you locked in a cycle of pain and retribution that ultimately serves no one, least of all yourself. This is where wisdom enters the picture. The smartest way to deal with toxic people is to focus not on revenge or retaliation, but on your own growth. Not on tearing down, but on building up. Not on fighting back, but on moving forward. Why is growth so important? Because toxic people often want to keep you stuck. Their toxicity is a way to control, to dominate, to maintain power over your emotional state. When you respond with anger or vindictiveness, you're still engaging with their agenda. You're still playing on their field. Growth, on the other hand, is a way of reclaiming your power on your own terms. Think about it philosophically. The great thinkers, from the Stoics to modern psychologists, emphasize that suffering and challenge are opportunities for growth. They're inevitable parts of life, but they don't have to define us. What defines us is how we respond, how we turn pain into strength, difficulty into wisdom. When you focus on growth, you shift your perspective. You stop seeing toxic people as enemies to fight and start seeing them as catalysts for your own development. Their toxicity becomes a mirror reflecting what you need to protect, what you need to heal, and what you need to strengthen within yourself. That doesn't mean you accept or excuse their behavior. Far from it. It means you refuse to let their negativity dictate your emotional climate. It means you use their presence as a reason to invest more deeply in your own resilience, your own self-respect, your own well-being. Growth looks like many things. It might mean learning how to set better boundaries, how to communicate more effectively, how to detach emotionally without shutting down completely. It might mean working on self-esteem, self-awareness, or emotional intelligence. It might mean seeking therapy, meditation, or support from trusted friends and mentors. All of these steps are about reclaiming your narrative. Toxic people want to write your story for you, often as someone who is weak, angry, or broken. Growth is the act of rewriting that story on your own terms. It's saying, I am not defined by your toxicity. I am defined by my strength, my courage, and my commitment to myself. There's a profound freedom in this. When you focus on growth, you free yourself from the endless loop of reacting to toxic behavior. You no longer waste energy trying to control or fix others because you realize the only thing you truly control is yourself. And that realization is transformative. The paradox is that when you focus on growth, you actually become less vulnerable to toxicity. Your resilience increases. your boundaries become stronger. Your sense of self becomes less dependent on external validation. Toxic people lose their grip because you are no longer an easy target. You become, in a very real sense, unbreakable, not because you avoid hardship, but because you learn how to rise from it. And there's a beauty in that, too. Growth is not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about becoming a more authentic, more grounded, more empowered version of yourself every day. It's about turning every toxic encounter into a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. Letting go of revenge and choosing growth is also a deeply compassionate act. Compassion for yourself, first and foremost. Recognizing that your energy is precious and that investing it in healing and development is the highest form of self-respect. But also compassion for others, even toxic people, recognizing that their behavior often comes from pain and unresolved struggle. That doesn't excuse them, but it allows you to step out of judgment and into your own power. As you embrace this mindset, you begin to see toxic encounters not as battles to win, but as lessons to learn. And those lessons, however painful, can become the foundation for a stronger, wiser self. So here's the challenge I want to leave you with. The next time you find yourself caught in the grip of toxicity, resist the urge to retaliate. Resist the pull of revenge. Instead, ask yourself, what can I learn here? How can this make me stronger? How can I turn this pain into power?